Hi everyone, it's Matt. I am doing the video for this week. I don't think I was originally on for this week, but the weeks got changed around. So um, anyway, I wanted to be able to answer the prompt for this week and kind of talk about charts and graphs and maybe the pros and cons for using them. I think the key is in the prompt. It says there are pros and cons to using such visual representations. And I think if we think about a chart or a graph being a visual representation, it'll go a lot longer that way in thinking about pros and cons. Some of you in the class probably took the what I called the PowerPoint class this summer, where we did a lot of presentation design and more than just thinking about charts and graphs in the statistical sense. We really looked at it in sort of more of like an artistic sense. And there were two books that I have kept near. The first one is Presentations in Design by Gary Reynolds, and he talks quite a bit about common charts and graphs. And then the other one is Clear and to the Point, and this is by Stephen Kosslyn. And they both have very similar information. I mean, if you look actually in the Fields text, it talks about basically you want to have, the pro to using charts and graphs is that they're showing you something, that there's a purpose for using it. And I think that that's echoed in these other two books as well, that you don't want to use a chart or graph just to use a chart or graph. You really want to have to make it purposeful. And a good example would be, and I'm taking this actually from the Reynolds book. He talks about pie charts in this book. And one of the things that he talks about, pie charts are really good for showing parts of the whole. But how often do we see pie charts that are divided into more than 100 pieces or 99 pieces, and the pieces are so small that you really can't actually get a visual representation? And so that would be an example of where you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. It can go either way depending on what type of data you're using in that actual chart. It was kind of eye-opening for me this summer just to think about like the different uses for charts, because a lot of times we just see bar graphs or we see pie charts used, and we don't really think about what type of information is being conveyed there. And so I think a definite con it can be if you're using a chart incorrectly. So the type of information that you're trying to convey is not done correctly within that chart. And so there are a few things that in the Kosslyn book that I wanted to talk about real quick. One was that using a pie chart to convey relative amounts. It basically kind of goes in and talks about the do's and don'ts, and then about basically using. I think in the Reynolds book he has a couple more examples. Using line graphs. Line graphs are meant to show over time. Scatter plots are meant to show relationship. So I think again you have to make sure the data you're showing is on the right type of graph. And then kind of just going off the PowerPoint, there were a couple of things that really stuck out to me. One was the very top point, which is show the data. A graph should show data. A graph should not just look good. Because if it's not showing true data, in the example in the textbook for Fields that we have was the bar graph, where if you have made the two bar graphs where they're only about this much difference, you're not really showing the data. So you have to make that graph larger to where you're actually showing a bigger difference there. So then that really goes into kind of distorting the data, which I think is often done politically to prove a point for whatever reason. And then the other thing that I really picked up on was it says present many numbers with minimum ink. I think that's so true that we oftentimes want to make graphs so complex, and sometimes really all we might need is a bar graph with two pieces to it to really show the difference. If you're not showing a trend, you're just showing a difference, then you don't need to show the whole trend. You just need to show the difference in the two pieces. So, a lot about bars and bar graphs and charts and all these types of things and the pros and cons really deals with making sure that what you're presenting is actually what you want to present. And that's something that I've had to get better at doing, because I just kind of grew up going through high school and even in undergrad just using bar graphs and things and not really thinking about what purpose I'm trying to convey or what I'm trying to convince my reader of. So hopefully these are some things to talk about, to think about. If you haven't taken the design class, I'm sure you'll take it this summer, and you can kind of key into those things. I thought it was a really great class, and I did learn a lot from it. So anyway, look forward to hearing from you and conversing with you.